Full story: how she built a billion-dollar empire, despite family doubts. Welcome to Silent Wars. Today, we bring you a powerful full story about family struggles, hidden success, and ultimate triumph. If you love inspiring stories, please hit like and subscribe to Silent Wars for more. The summer sun hung low over the quiet suburb of Scottsdale, Arizona, casting a warm golden glow over the Johnson family's annual barbecue. The scent of smoked brisket mingled with the tangy sweetness of freshly squeezed lemonade, drifting lazily through the backyard where children chased each other across the freshly mowed lawn. Adults lounged under wide umbrellas, laughter spilling over like music as they shared stories and debated the latest fantasy football picks. It was the kind of scene that looked perfect to the outside world, a close-knit family enjoying a summer evening. But beneath the surface, the air crackled with unspoken tension. In the middle of the gathering, Claire stood out like a beacon. Dressed in a crisp white summer dress, she animatedly described her recent accomplishments: 2 Ivy League degrees, a dual master's from Wharton and MIT, and a string of interviews lined up with Fortune 500 companies. Her smile was bright, her confidence magnetic, and the adults surrounding her hung on every word. "Claire's going places," her mother proclaimed, her voice just loud enough for everyone, including Sarah, to hear. "We're so proud of her." Sarah, 28 and quietly successful in her own right, stood at the edge of the patio, a glass of iced tea sweating in her hand. She was dressed casually in jeans and a loose blouse, blending easily into the background, but her mind raced. Claire had always been the family favorite, the shining star who never seemed to stumble. Meanwhile, Sarah's journey was a story rarely told. A self-made entrepreneur running a successful startup in downtown Phoenix, quietly building a reputation without the Ivy League degrees or flashy accolades. Yet, to her family, she was still that artsy one who never settled down. She listened to the compliments raining down on Claire, each word a quiet reminder of the gulf between their worlds, or at least how the family perceived it. The whispers around the grill weren't just about Claire's achievements. They were subtle comparisons, the kind that made Sarah's accomplishments invisible. Her father chuckled from the grill, casually asking about her little business thing, his tone more dismissive than curious. But Sarah didn't need their approval. She knew her worth, even if the Johnsons didn't. As the sun dipped behind the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the yard, she took a deep breath. Tomorrow was the day everything would change. The day Claire would walk into her company's conference room, unaware that the woman they underestimated was already the one sitting at the head of the table. Claire stood at the center of the backyard, her eyes shining with excitement as she shared the news with her family. "I've got an interview tomorrow," she announced confidently, "with one of the top tech consulting firms in Silicon Valley." The words hung in the warm summer air like a spark, igniting a burst of applause and congratulations from the adults nearby. Glasses were raised, smiles stretched wide, and her mother's eyes glistened with pride. "That's my girl!" she exclaimed, beaming as if Claire's future was already sealed. Around the patio, the family's energy shifted to admiration and validation. Relatives leaned in, eager to hear more about the opportunity, asking questions about the company and the role Claire was aiming for. Whispers of praise spread quickly about her Ivy League degrees, her impressive resume, and the countless doors this interview could open. Some cousins even exchanged glances, clearly impressed by Claire's seemingly unstoppable trajectory. Meanwhile, Sarah sat quietly at the edge of the patio, her iced tea slowly melting in the heat. She observed the scene with a mix of irony and a simmering anticipation that no one else could see. The glowing spotlight was all on Claire, the golden child, the family's pride and joy. And yet, Sarah's own accomplishments, built in shadows and sweat far from the public eye, were barely acknowledged. She heard the subtle comparisons, Claire's going places. She's the one making us proud, and felt the sting of invisibility. Her father's casual question from the grill echoed in her mind. Still tinkering with your little business thing? His tone was more amused than supportive, the phrase dismissive enough to sting, but not enough to provoke a response. Sarah took a slow sip of her drink, keeping her smile polite but tight. She had long learned to mask her frustrations behind calm, measured composure. The evening buzzed with excitement over Claire's bright future, but Sarah's thoughts drifted to the quiet power she held. She was the founder of a rapidly growing startup nestled in downtown Phoenix, negotiating multi-million-dollar deals while the family celebrated Ivy League credentials. The contrast was stark, and yet unspoken. As the family rallied around Claire's success, Sarah's smile deepened not from envy, but from the certainty that tomorrow, everything would shift. The woman everyone underestimated was ready to step into the light. Sarah sat alone in her sleek penthouse office, perched high above the bustling city of San Diego. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the sparkling harbor and the vast Pacific beyond, the morning sun casting a golden shimmer across the skyline. She cradled a steaming mug of coffee in her hands, her eyes fixed on the glowing screen before her. On it, family photos from the recent barbecue flickered alongside notifications, most congratulating her younger sister Claire on her supposed big interview at a prestigious tech consulting firm. What none of them knew was that firm was Sarah's creation, built painstakingly from the ground up in a tiny studio apartment 10 years ago. Back then, Sarah had no fancy degrees or inherited connections. Her apartment was barely 400 square feet, with a second-hand desk and a battered laptop that was more hope than hardware. Through countless late nights fueled by instant coffee and determination, she coded, negotiated, and pitched her fledgling startup, gradually building it into Cascade Logic, a name now synonymous with innovation and disruption in the tech world. Today, the company employed over 500 people and serviced Fortune 100 clients, with annual revenues soaring into the hundreds of millions. Yet her family remained blissfully unaware of her achievements. To them, Sarah was still the artsy one, a quiet shadow to Claire's spotlight. They never asked about her work or the late nights she endured. They didn't know about the multi-million-dollar contracts she closed, or the board meetings where her strategic decisions shaped the future of artificial intelligence. They only saw the surface, a woman who didn't chase traditional success the way they understood it. Sarah smiled faintly, the bittersweet irony settling deep inside her. Here was Claire, proudly boasting about interviewing at Cascade Logic, the very company Sarah had nurtured from an idea into an empire. The very firm where Sarah would soon be leading the final rounds of hiring and strategy sessions. The realization was both amusing and deeply satisfying. As she prepared for the upcoming day, one that would finally unveil her true position within the family dynamic, Sarah felt a mixture of anticipation and calm resolve. The time for invisibility was over. She had built her empire quietly, letting her results speak for themselves. Now it was time for the world and her family to finally see the real CEO behind the curtain. The morning sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Cascade Logic's sleek headquarters, nestled on a bluff overlooking the breathtaking California coastline. The waves crashed gently against the rocky shore below, sunlight dancing across the glass facades of the towering office buildings. Inside the executive suite on the 32nd floor, Sarah stood before the full-length mirror, adjusting the lapel of her tailored slate-gray Alexander McQueen suit. The fabric felt like armor against the storm she knew was coming. Her reflection showed a woman poised and composed, yet beneath that calm exterior, a storm of anticipation and determination raged. Today was no ordinary day. It was the day Sarah would face her family's assumptions head-on, the day she would confront her younger sister Claire in a boardroom interview that would challenge everything Claire believed about her own success. Sarah's executive assistant, Naya, entered quietly, holding a slim folder. Claire arrived 25 minutes early, she reported, her eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and sympathy. She's been telling the front desk all about her future leadership role. Nia's words elicited a barely restrained smile from Sarah. Confidence is admirable, Sarah replied softly. Let's see if she's prepared to back it up. As Nia left, Sarah took a slow, steadying breath and glanced out the panoramic window. The skyline stretched endlessly, a symbol of how far she had come from a cramped studio apartment in downtown San Diego to the helm of a billion-dollar tech firm. The early morning hum of the city below was a comforting rhythm, grounding her amidst the swirling emotions. The elevator's quiet ding snapped her back to reality. Her heart steadied as she smoothed her suit and checked her watch. 8:45 a.m. The interview was scheduled for 9 o'clock sharp. She rehearsed the lines she might say, the calm authority she would project. But beyond rehearsed speeches, she knew this was a test of patience, resilience, and silent strength. Claire, decked in a pristine white blouse and pencil skirt, was already making an impression, albeit a fragile one. Sarah recalled the news flashes on social media boasting Claire's inevitable rise within the company. The irony was delicious, but tinged with melancholy. Would Claire understand the weight of the legacy she was about to challenge? A deep breath. The moment was near. Sarah adjusted her cufflinks, squared her shoulders, and stepped out of her office. Today, the past and future collided, and Sarah was ready. Claire stepped into the expansive conference room, her heels clicking confidently on the polished oak floor. The room, bathed in natural light streaming from the panoramic windows overlooking the San Diego harbor, was designed to intimidate sleek glass walls, an imposing mahogany table stretching nearly 30 feet, and the serious faces of senior partners seated around it. Claire's smile was bright but rehearsed, her posture perfect, projecting the image she had meticulously crafted for this moment. From behind a one-way mirror, Sarah watched quietly, her pulse quickening despite the calm she projected in her office. This was the culmination of years of patience and determination, the moment Claire would confront the reality she had long ignored. Claire had walked in believing the interview was a mere formality, a step she was destined to ace with ease. The first question came from a partner known for his sharp, no-nonsense approach. Tell us about a time you led a project from concept to completion. What was the outcome? Claire launched into a polished answer, recounting a summer internship she'd done at a large corporation, glossing over the team's actual achievements and her limited role. The partners exchanged subtle looks, sensing the gaps beneath the surface. As the questioning intensified, Claire's confidence wavered. When asked about how she handled conflict within a team, she hesitated, fumbling for examples. Well, I usually try to keep the peace, she said, voice losing its earlier certainty. Another question about strategic decision-making exposed her lack of real-world experience, revealing reliance on theory over practice. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, but her face remained unreadable. The cracks in Claire's carefully constructed facade were widening with every faltering response. The polished veneer of Ivy League prestige and designer clothes couldn't mask the truth. The depth of experience, resilience, and grit that Sarah had built into her own leadership was nowhere to be found in Claire. By the time Claire reached the final round of questions, her smile had become strained, her eyes darting nervously. She stumbled over technical terms and vague answers, betraying the reality that this was no mere interview, it was a reckoning. Sarah allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible nod. The interview had done its work. Outside the mirrored glass, Claire was unraveling. Inside, Sarah's silent strength shone brighter than ever. The battle for recognition had only just begun. Claire stepped into the spacious executive office, her confident stride faltering the moment Sarah turned slowly to face her. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the subtle glint of the polished nameplate on Sarah's massive mahogany desk. Sarah Elaine Johnson, Chief Executive Officer. Claire's breath hitched, and the carefully constructed mask of certainty cracked for the first time. "Please, have a seat, Ms. Johnson," Sarah said calmly, her voice steady but carrying the weight of years of silent determination. Claire's eyes darted nervously, her mind racing to reconcile the woman before her with the arts major she had long dismissed. Sarah leaned back, folding her hands thoughtfully. "I imagine this interview has been enlightening," she began, a slight smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "You see, I founded Cascade Logic 10 years ago in a tiny San Diego apartment, with nothing but a laptop and a vision. I built this company from the ground up, negotiating contracts in coffee shops, coding through sleepless nights, and navigating every challenge that came my way." Claire swallowed hard, her perfectly polished resume suddenly feeling like a fragile veneer. Sarah's gaze remained steady, her calm authority filling the room. "Your resume is impressive on paper," she continued, "but experience and dedication can't be faked. While you were busy riding on the coattails of family connections and curated LinkedIn posts, I was building a multi-million-dollar tech firm, employing hundreds and shaping the future of AI solutions." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Claire's lips parted as if to protest, but no words came. The magnitude of Sarah's success and Claire's ignorance pressed down like a weight. Sarah's voice softened, tinged with quiet resolve. "This company represents years of sacrifice and hard work, something you haven't yet earned or understood. I hoped this interview might be an opportunity for you to see that." Claire's eyes flickered with a mixture of shock, shame, and something like admiration. The woman she had underestimated was not only the CEO, but the powerhouse behind the very company she'd dreamed of joining. Sarah stood and extended a hand, her smile now gentle but firm. "I wish you the best in finding your own path, Claire, but here, we value substance over appearances." As Claire left the office, the finality of the moment settled. The truth was out. And for Sarah, years of invisibility were finally over. Within the hour after Claire's stunned exit, Sarah's phone began buzzing relentlessly. Notifications lit up the screen, texts and calls from relatives, their messages a chaotic mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. "How could you humiliate Claire like that?" one cousin demanded. "We raised you better than this," accused her aunt, her words tinged with betrayal. "You should have told us sooner," another message read, heavy with a sense of wounded pride. Sarah stared at the flood of responses, her fingers hovering briefly over the keyboard before she typed her reply, a simple, measured statement. "I built my success alone, without anyone's approval or support." She pressed send and set the phone aside, a quiet resolve settling over her. The family's reaction was a storm Sarah had expected, but refused to let unsettle her. For years, she had carried the weight of their dismissive glances and patronizing comments, the subtle insinuations that she was less because she took an unconventional path. She had been the quiet one, the invisible daughter who didn't fit the mold. Now, the truth was out, and it stung them deeply. Messages poured in, some laced with venom, others tinged with confusion and even envy. A message from her father stood out. "We always believed Claire was the future." The pain behind those words was palpable, but Sarah knew better. The future was built on hard work and grit, not on polished resumes and social status. Yet, amidst the storm, Sarah found an unexpected calm. The texts and calls were just noise, a fleeting reaction to years of hidden truths finally surfacing. She didn't need their validation. Her achievements stood tall, etched in every contract signed, every project completed, every employee thriving under her leadership. As the day wore on, the family's tone shifted. The casual Sunday barbecues that once buzzed with laughter and light teasing grew quieter, replaced by awkward silences and tentative conversations. Invitations dwindled. Sarah's presence became a reminder of their misjudgment, a mirror reflecting their own short-sightedness. But Sarah embraced her solitude. She was no longer the shadowed figure in the background. She was the CEO of a billion-dollar tech firm, a woman who had forged her path against all odds. The family could wrestle with their pride and regret, but Sarah's focus remained unwavering on growth, innovation, and mentoring the next generation of leaders. Her success was hers alone, and that was enough. Months had passed since the fateful interview, and Claire's life had taken a direction far from the grand ambitions she once flaunted. She now worked as a project coordinator at a modest marketing agency, tucked away in a quiet corner of downtown San Diego, far from the corner office and executive title she had envisioned during the barbecue, where she once basked in family admiration. The agency was small, its annual revenue barely scraping the lower six figures, and the work was steady but unremarkable. It was, by any measure, a far cry from the Fortune 500 leadership role Claire had expected to secure. At first, the transition was jarring. Claire struggled with the sudden shift from being the golden child to feeling invisible. The family's once boisterous Sunday gatherings filled with laughter, applause, and teasing jabs at Sarah's arts major phase had dwindled to strained encounters. The backyard barbecues, once alive with the scent of smoked ribs and the clinking of lemonade glasses, were now filled with long silences and awkward glances. Conversations that used to flow freely now felt like navigating a minefield. Sarah watched the changes with a bittersweet satisfaction. There was no gloating in her gaze, only a quiet acknowledgement that the family was finally facing the reality they had ignored for so long. The very family that had dismissed her achievements now grappled with the truth, and the unspoken tensions reshaped their relationships. Phone calls from relatives grew less frequent, their voices more tentative when they did come. Invitations to family events became scarce, replaced by polite excuses and avoided eye contact. Sarah felt the weight of their discomfort but held steady. She had built her success with resilience, and now the family was left to reconcile their expectations with the new dynamic. For Claire, the journey was humbling. She wrestled with feelings of failure and resentment, but gradually began to see value in earning her place the hard way. The modest agency became a classroom, teaching her lessons no Ivy League degree could provide about humility, perseverance, and the grit needed to build something lasting. In the quiet moments, Sarah found a sense of peace. She had fought years of invisibility and judgment, and now, as the family adjusted to this new reality, she stood firm not just as a CEO, but as the woman who had quietly rewritten her own story. Months after the family fallout, Sarah's life had taken a remarkable turn. A sleek package arrived on the doorsteps of her relatives' homes across Arizona and California, copies of Tech Innovators magazine, featuring her on the cover. The headline read, "Silent Success: How Sarah Johnson Built a Billion-Dollar Tech Empire Under the Radar." The photograph was striking Sarah standing confidently in a tailored navy suit, the San Diego skyline stretching behind her, a quiet power radiating from her poised stance. The magazine didn't need words to speak volumes. For years, Sarah had lived in the shadows of family assumptions and underestimations, quietly growing cascade logic from a one-woman startup into an industry leader disrupting artificial intelligence solutions. Now, that success was on full display for the world and her family to see. Inside the magazine, a detailed feature chronicled her journey. Late nights coding in a 350-square-foot apartment, pitching to skeptical investors in noisy coffee shops, and negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts in boardrooms she had once only dreamed of entering. The article highlighted the grit, sacrifices, and relentless determination that had powered her rise, painting a vivid picture of a woman who refused to be defined by traditional expectations. Sarah knew that each copy delivered was a silent message to the family who had doubted her. No notes, no letters, just the undeniable truth printed in glossy ink. The irony was delicious. While her younger sister Claire was still climbing the corporate ladder, Sarah had already reached the summit. Phone calls and messages flooded Sarah's inbox, some from old friends and mentors congratulating her on the well-deserved recognition, others from relatives grappling with a mix of pride, regret, and embarrassment. But Sarah's reply was consistent. She needed no approval or validation from those who had failed to see her worth. The magazine cover became a symbol not just of professional achievement, but of resilience and self-belief. For Sarah, it was a quiet victory over years of dismissal and invisibility. The woman who was once written off as just the artsy one was now a trailblazer, inspiring a new generation of female entrepreneurs. As she placed the magazine on her office shelf beside awards and framed contracts, Sarah smiled softly. This was more than recognition. It was proof that success isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet strength behind closed doors that changes the world. Sarah sat comfortably in her softly lit home office, the city lights of San Diego twinkling beyond the large windows behind her. The camera was set, and she took a deep breath before pressing record. Today wasn't about business strategies or contracts. It was about something far more personal, reaching out to those who, like her, had been doubted, dismissed, or underestimated by the people closest to them. "Hello, everyone," she began, her voice steady but warm, radiating a quiet strength forged through years of perseverance. If you've ever been told you're not enough, too vague, too different, or just not what your family expected, then I want you to know you are not alone. She paused, letting the words sink in, her eyes reflecting empathy and understanding. I spent years being the quiet one, the artsy sister who didn't fit the mold, overshadowed by a sibling with Ivy League degrees and a perfect resume. But here's what I learned. Your worth isn't defined by anyone else's expectations. It's defined by the fire inside you, by what you build when no one's watching. Sarah's message was clear. Success isn't always loud or flashy. Sometimes it's the steady, invisible work done in the background, the late nights coding in a tiny apartment, the countless rejections turned into lessons, the resilience that keeps you going when the world doubts you. Keep building, she urged, her tone filled with conviction. Keep believing in your vision, even when it feels like you're alone, because one day your success will speak louder than any doubt ever could. She smiled gently, a reminder that quiet strength was often the most powerful. Then, Sarah invited her viewers to share their own stories. Tell me about your struggles, your small victories, your moments of resilience. Let's create a community where we lift each other up, where we celebrate the silent victories that change lives. As the video ended, Sarah felt a sense of connection with a larger family, the community of dreamers, fighters, and quietly determined souls. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was theirs too. And together, they would keep building, thriving, and proving that true success comes from within. Life often teaches us that success and worth are not always visible on the surface. Too often, we are judged by others' expectations, labels, or by comparing ourselves to someone else's path. But true value comes from within, from the quiet determination, resilience, and integrity that shape who we are over time. For those in their golden years, this message is especially important. It reminds us that no matter what challenges we have faced or how others have seen us, our life's work, whether big or small, matters deeply. It is never too late to build, to grow, or to redefine success on our own terms. One important lesson is to honor your own journey without seeking constant approval from others. The approval of family, friends, or society can be fleeting, but your inner strength and the impact you make quietly endure. Sometimes, the most profound achievements are those done away from the spotlight in acts of kindness, the wisdom shared with younger generations, or simply persevering through life's hardships. Another lesson is to embrace patience and humility. Success is rarely immediate. It is built step by step, day by day. This steady progress, often invisible to others, is the foundation of lasting fulfillment and peace. Finally, remember that your story matters. Sharing your experiences, the struggles and triumphs alike, can inspire others to find their own strength. In doing so, you create a legacy not just of achievements, but of courage, hope, and resilience. No matter where you are in life, your worth is defined by your spirit, your values, and the love you give, not by how others see you. Thank you for watching this full story on Silent Wars. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring content. See you in the next video.